do you really want to know the truth? It's been quite a long 3 or 4 weeks actually, and the weather's terrible in England at the moment, and I'm quite tired, and I thought, when I saw the invitation to drive the 488 Spider, I fancy a day in the sunshine, so yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm going to drive around in the 488. You can learn something about it, but primarily this exercise is for me to get some sunshine and drive a Ferrari for the day, and that is the real world of motoring journalism. So how's this going to work? Well, the roads around Rimini are rather lovely, so we'll do some of that. First things first, it being a convertible, I need to go and find somewhere beautiful and cliched to do the cliched dropping the roof off shot, so let's go and do that first. I like this being a motoring journalist thing.
The change from coupe to Spider is just the same as it was in the 458. The folding roof mechanism is the same, the weight penalty is around 50 kilograms. But there are two important differences this time round. The first is the body shell, which has been strengthened in a few places to give 25% more torsional strength. The second is the springs and dampers, which this time around have been carried over unchanged from the coupe. This is unusual. Normally a Ferrari Spider is a little softer to cope with the added body flex, but the 488's new adaptive dampers can manage the job themselves. Other than that, this really is a 488 GTB with a removable roof, and yet they still gave us an hour and a half of technical slides the night before we drove it.
Well, this certainly beats doing my emails in the UK. Roads are a mixed bunch, quite punchy of Ferrari to launch a convertible on such bumpy roads. I found the smoothest bit possible so this camera doesn't fall off, but I can completely see why you'd want your only special car to have the roof that comes off, because it's a really nice thing to do, to just have the air there. And as we know, this car is a little bit stiffer than before, which is good, because frankly the 458 Spider was a little bit wobbly. There's two types of wobbles for me. There's the wobble and flex that you get in the chassis, which is not always a bad thing because it forces you to have less spring rate and it means the car can be more supple. So oddly enough, I think the 458 Spider in the UK is a bit more supple, and the way the chassis flexes is rather nice. However, there's also the mounting of the steering rack, and the 458 at times does feel like you're involved in a game of chase with the steering rack. Oh, come back here, you're over there. And this is definitely better in that respect, although you do get some quite big shimmies through the wheel. None of this would be a problem if there wasn't a car called the McLaren 650S, because the one thing the McLaren really does have over the Ferrari range is that carbon tub. Now, I spent 3 months in the McLaren over the summer, and with the roof down or roof up, the dynamics of the car are identical to the coupe. You really don't feel any difference at all, whereas in this car, you really do feel a difference compared to the coupe. It's just a lot more bendy. But then who buys one of these to scratch it round as fast as they can the whole time? I suppose that's up to you, the lucky person who's going to drive one, not me. What about the engine? Well, I'm now doing 38 miles an hour and I'm in third gear. If I put my foot down now, I'm now doing a speed that isn't good anywhere in Europe that quickly. The performance of this thing leaves you wondering where everyone goes next. It is much, much faster than the previous generation of supercars. You know, this thing would leave an Enzo for dead, no doubt about that. You can turn everything off, at which point the whole SSC2 side slip control 2 system becomes mind-bending on the public road. I love the way that it can slacken each corner off it needs to look for grip, because it sometimes adds a sense of roll to the car, which is just great, so you get more suppleness. Well, as I said in my review of the coupe, I think this car sounds better than a 458, so the turbos don't give me noise argument is, I'm afraid, a non-argument in the case of the 488. I think it's a fantastic noise. It sounds more like an engine noise than the even falser 458. It still has that ability to sort of close a valve and open a valve between 100 RPM, and suddenly you get a very different car. All the modes work well. On the road, the race mode is quite aggressive. You get quite fast gear shifts, but it's perfectly usable. What about the cabin? Well, pretty much identical to the 458 in terms of the lack of buffeting. Is it a real convertible? I'd say it's more a sort of Targa, because the aperture that opens up isn't huge. But it's so convenient. Anything below about 26 miles an hour, I think it is, you can roll the lid up and down. The cabin is complicated, but frankly, there's everything you could ever need. You could use this car as an everyday car if you wanted to. Not that you necessarily would, because perhaps it would depreciate too fast. I don't know. As you can probably tell, I like it. As you can probably tell, I'm having a rather nice day out. I have to say, I can thoroughly recommend spending your Monday mornings in Italy driving a 488 Spider. Yes, it's just another one of those cars that's really so much better than it needs to be, that it comes down to which one you like the look of, I think, or which badge you want. You know, I just can't see, if you want an open top mid-engine super sports car, why you'd need anything more. But there we go. Now I've got to deal with that kind of come down after the event back to the UK, where it's horrible and rainy and wet. So just had an email about going to Portugal to drive a McLaren. So in the spirit of being a smug bastard, I'm going to go and do that. See ya.